What's up, guys? Owen here, back with another Hand Productions video. Today, as you can see by the thumbnail and the title, we're going to be doing a running back tier list. But before we start, I just want to say thank you guys so much for 32 subscribers. Yesterday was 20, and then the day before that was 10. And heck, maybe tomorrow's video, it'll be 40, even 50. Just want to say thank you guys so much. Like I said yesterday, I love making these videos, and I'm glad some people like watching them. But yeah, let's get into the NFL running back tier list. All right, so the first running back up is Khalil Herbert. I would say he's a tier 4 guy. Not the best, but not the worst. So yeah, tier 4 is perfect spot for Khalil Herbert. Next up, we have Christian McCaffrey. In my opinion, he's the best running back in the NFL. Well, I think that's everyone's opinion. But 2,000 scrimmage yards, 20 total touchdowns. In my opinion, an easy pick for us here. Next up, we have Kenneth Walker, and I would put him as a tier 3 guy. He got injured a bit last year, but overall, I would say he's a solid tier 3 guy, like a B tier guy. Not the best, but again, not the worst. He's better than he is bad, I should say. So he's not like a middle of the pack guy like Herbert is. Next up, we have Singletary. He's also a tier 3 guy. Again, not the greatest, but he'll get the job done. He'll get 4.5 yards a carry. He'll get you like 800 to 1,000 yards each season. Overall, solid running back if you need a, kind of like a mix of a power back and a shifty kind of guy. Next up, we have Zeke, and he's bottom of the league. Again, not great for Zeke. He is not that good anymore. I wish he was good, because when he was in his prime, he was fun. But right now, he's not the best. Next up, we have Reese Hall. He's going to the same tier as Singletary, which sounds crazy, but he didn't have a crazy year this year after tearing his ACL around middle of last year. Yeah, again, he can still get better. It was tough to come back from an ACL injury, obviously. Most quarterbacks, even most running backs, can't be the same after at least 1 year, like we've seen with Von Miller. But yeah, he's a tier 3 guy. Next up, we have Fournette, and he's bottom of the league. I mean, he barely played last year. He was on the Bills, and he was alright, I guess. I feel like he had less than 15 carries, so he's bottom of the league. He barely even played. Alright, next up, we have Josh Jacobs. He's a tier 2 guy. Not as good as his last season, obviously, 2022-2023 season, where he had, I think, 15. I think he led the league in rushing yards. But again, solid guy. A tier. I mean, again, not as good as that one season, but still better than most. Next up, DeAndre Swift. Tier 3. Just along the lines, I mean, you could see him in a higher tier, but anyone behind that line, offensive line, is gonna get 1,200 yards. So I would say tier 3 for DeAndre Swift. Next up, Nick Chubb. Easy S tier elite. Second best running back in the NFL. I think he could have contested Christian McCaffrey if he didn't get hurt this year as the league's leading rusher. So yeah, I think this is an easy elite tier for Nick Chubb. Next up, I think this is Tyler Algier. And I think he's a tier 3 guy. Again, he's just like Devin Singletary. He's solid. He'll get the job done. Overall, I mean, I think he was splitting carries with Bijan Robinson, which is crazy to me because obviously Bijan is insanely good, but overall, again, solid guy. Next up, Williams, tier 5. He had 1 touchdown this year. Well, he's backup. He was the backup behind what's his name, Alvin Kamara. So yeah, not great. Next up, we have JT. I would say he's an A tier back. He's really good. That 2021 year he had, which I think was his either second year or his rookie year. Again, I don't think he'll ever get back to that. Most running backs don't go to their highest level as they were sometimes or go back. But overall, tier 2 back. I would say the definition of it would be A tier, I guess, if we're going just by letters. But yeah, so he's a solid A tier. Next up, we have Saquon Barkley, and he's tier 3. Not crazy this year. I thought he'd be better after, his injuries and he got the contract at least for 1 more year in there, even though he's gonna leave probably this year. But yeah, not great. So tier 3. Or not as good as Saquon standards, I should say. Next up, James Cook, A tier. Or tier 2, you should say. Such a good running back. I mean, if he can not fumble as much as he does, or almost fumble, he's gonna be really good for a few years, man. He's so good. That's a Bills fan speaking. Alright, next up, we have Aaron Jones, and he's a solid running back. I would say tier 3. He's not on the same tier as Cook and these guys, in my opinion. But again, he's with all these guys. He's a good running back. Next up, Mostert, and I'm putting him in tier A. It might seem crazy putting him above, Reese Hall, but, I mean, he had tons of touchdowns this year. He's super fast. Easy tier 2 guy, in my opinion. Next up, I actually do not know who this guy is. This might be Justice Hill. or Gus Edwards, but I would say if this is Gus Edwards or Justice Hill, I would go tier 4 for these guys. Again, they're pretty solid, but they get hurt too much. And if you have an inconsistent running back like that, you can't be any tier higher than tier 4. Next up, Clyde. I would say bottom of the league. I mean, first round pick, running back. Not doesn't usually happen. So your first round pick with running back, you better be good. And he was not good. He's back up. He's behind Pacheco, who's a 6th-round draft pick out of Rutgers. Yeah, bottom of the league. He's not bad, but he's not good either. Next up, we have ETN. In my opinion, he is a tier 3 to tier 2. I'll put him in tier 2 because he is really good. I feel like his last season wasn't crazy good like I thought it would have been, but overall, still a solid guy. You know what I mean? Still A tier in my opinion. I think he's right here with these guys. So yeah. Next up, Dylan, and in my opinion, he is one of, if not the best, backup running backs in the NFL. He could be a starter on most teams. So, in my opinion, he's right along the lines with Aaron Jones. Like those two, they might have like the best running back combination, running back backfield, in my opinion. Next up, this is either Brian Robinson, but this also might be Brian Robinson. Actually, no, I have no idea. This is Brian Robinson. He is a solid tier 4 guy. I just looked it up. That is indeed Brian Robinson, and he's a tier 4 guy. Again, solid, but not as good as Singletary or Swift or Reese Hall, in my opinion. Next up, I think I looked this guy up too. You can probably see it in the tabs. It was the Chiefs depth chart. I think this is a Michael Pirine. I don't think he gets many carries, so I'm going to say bottom of the league along with Clyde. As you can see, he is on the Chiefs because you can see the little thing right there. I've never heard of him before, so he's got it. I don't think he's anywhere with these guys. Next up, we have Pollard, and I'm going to put him on the same tier as Brian Robinson. Like, he wasn't that good. I thought he would be a 10 top 5 guy in the league after what we've seen when he's backed up Zeke, but really, it wasn't anything crazy. And I feel like that was a disappointment to many people, probably a disappointment to Cowboys fans. They might end up drafting a running back with a 2nd-round pick this year. Next up, we have Gibbs, and in my opinion, he's already A-tier running back. Like, he is good. And honestly, I know he doesn't get that many carries or touches because he splits them with David Montgomery, but like overall, he's a very, very good running back. I have to say, very good. So yeah, I would say that. Next up, we have Derrick Henry, and in my opinion, he's elite. No matter how much he's slowed down, he's still a top 5 guy in the league. He still leads the AFC in all carries, or not all carries, all rushing yards. So yeah. Next up, we have Pacheco. In my opinion, he's an A-tier running back. I mean, 6th-round pick out of Rutgers, which is I don't think it's not even Power 5. I don't think it's Group of 5. So good. Like, I don't understand. He runs so hard. So yeah, he's that. Samaje Perine, bottom of the league. Barely got any rushing yards, any touches this year, besides like maybe some receiving yards. Not good. Next up, I think this is Joe Mixon. He's gonna go right in B tier along with these guys. I don't think he's as good as any of these guys up here, but he's not as good as any of these guys down here, so he's right in the middle. Tier 3. Next up, I think this is Kareem Hunt. Again, he's going with this. He got re-signed to the Browns for a little bit after Nick Chubb got hurt. He was solid, and for what it's worth. He was a solid backup, but again, he's not as good as these guys. Next up, this is Antonio Gibson. This is Brian Robinson, and I would say Antonio Gibson is tier 5. I don't know what happened. He was good during like the COVID year, but then Robinson showed up and like he got put to special teams for some reason. But he's not as bad as these guys because I've seen him play. He's not bad. So yeah. Next up, I think this is Dante Foreman. I think this guy's a tier 5, but he's a good backup. He's a good backup for any team. I think he's on the Bears now. Again, I think he's a good backup for any team. Next up, we have Kamara, and in my opinion, he's an A tier back or a tier 2. Not like the most like flashy stats, I feel like, but he doesn't get talked about enough. But he's a top tier running back, in my opinion. He's all along with these guys as a good running back in the NFL. Next up, I'm pretty sure this is actually David Montgomery, and because this isn't updated for some reason. This is probably before last season. This guy and these two are the best running back duo in the NFL. Not these two. These are probably like the most combined. Like you got the like kind of the speed versus the power. These two are the best. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are so good together. It's unbelievable. Next up, this is a Dolphins player. This might be Jeff Wilson. This isn't H-Hand. This might be Jeff Wilson. If it is, I'll put him in tier 4. Any running back on the Dolphins really is a pretty solid running back in my opinion. I mean, Bills play him twice a year. They're so deep, like with running backs and stuff. They got tons of depth on their team, so probably a tier 4 guy. Next up, we have Austin Eckler. In my opinion, tier 4 was not that good this year. In my opinion, he was not good. He had just like 1.5 years to carry some games. You'd go like 13 for like 17. Not good for this dude. I thought he'd get paid. I thought he was really good. Shows you how like running backs, they can go away in an instant. They can just snap a finger, gone. Bad again. Next up is Rashad White, and I thought he was a solid B tier back. The start of the year, he wasn't getting that many carries or touches at all, really. But as the time went on, the Bucs finally realized, hey, let's use our guy, and he's really good. And I think in the next coming years, he can get up to these elite tiers like this, tier 2 and elite tier. Next up, Williams, in my opinion, tier 2. It might seem crazy, but the dude is so good. He's a fantasy monster, and the Rams have needed a good running back since Todd Gurley, and I think they got it with Kyren Williams. Next up, I think this is Chuba, tier 5. Again, not great. I mean, really not great, I would say. Like, he's fine, but he's not the same tier as any of these guys. Next up, Connor. He's actually an A tier guy. He is really good, and he's kind of slept on a bit as like a top 10 running back in the NFL, but I think he is honestly a top 10 running back in the NFL. Next up, we have Stevenson. He was a C tier this year. He wasn't great. He did better than Zeke though, and he's better than these two. So overall, tier 4. Next up, I don't know who that is. We'll move on. We'll go to Dalvin Cook since I know pretty much everyone else on this list. Dalvin Cook was a tier 5. I mean, he got released from the Jets, and he got signed to by the what's it called, the Ravens, which wasn't a good look because it was like the dude's kind of washed now. Glad the Bills didn't sign him because I think we got the better brother. So yeah. Next up, Bijan. In my opinion, he's already an A tier. So many people are in A tier, but there's so many good like running backs in the NFL right now. He just get enough touches, but when he does, he's explosive. He's awesome. With his new head coach, Raheem Morris, I think what they need to do is give Bijan the ball, give Drake London the ball, give Kyle Pitts the ball, and they will succeed. Next up, this is either Justice Hill or Gus Edwards. Either way, I would say both their running backs are tier 3, tier 4 guys. If this is Gus Edwards or this might be Justice Hill, either way, both of the guys tier 3, tier 4, all Ravens running backs, solid. They get hurt a lot. Hey, no, this is J.K. Dobbins. Actually, moved on to tier 4. Not great, I would say. Gets injured a lot. When he plays, he's good, but he doesn't play. Not something to laugh about. It's the truth. He literally doesn't play. Next up, I think this is Javonte. He didn't have an amazing year. I would put him in the same tier as, Eckler. It wasn't crazy. I thought he would, bounce back and have a good year, but it didn't really seem like he did. Next up, Sanders. He bottom of the league. He was not good for the Panthers. Just shows that when you get behind the Eagles' offensive line, you're destined to get 1,200 yards, get a big payday with another team, and then just fail. Next up, I think this is Pierce. Tier 5. Wasn't great this year. A lot of games look up his stat sheet where he did not have many yards, not have many carries. Singletary actually was the starting running back for most of the year for the Texans. Next up, we have Najee Harris. And in my opinion, he's not bottom league. I don't know why I put him there, but he is a solid guy. Get the hate with him. Like, he is not, in my opinion, Jalen Warren is better, but there's no reason to hate on the guy. Like, he isn't bad. I genuinely do not understand the hate for Najee Harris. And I'm not defending the guy, saying he's, up with these guys, but he's a solid back in this league. His rookie year was good, and even though he's not the fastest guy, he's a good power back. He just got to get a little bit faster. That's it. All right. I'm going to do a little cut here. I'll come back. I'm going to research who this guy is. All right. See you for the last ranking. Alright, so I tried to do some research. I have no idea who this guy is. There's no telling his jersey of what it is. It looks like a Falcons, maybe. It looks like maybe one of these jerseys, I guess. But, so this might be, I was thinking maybe this is Cordero Patterson. If it is, then he's a tier 3 guy. But I don't want to be sure and just put a random, I don't want to be it's a different guy and put him as a tier 3. So, but yeah. So again, thank you guys for 32 subscribers. Thank you guys for watching to the end. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.